Welcome to Redefining Medicine, an intimate and personalized program that illustrates a different side of the practice of medicine. Our in-depth conversations will focus on mentors and motivators who are consistently reshaping, redefining, and rediscovering the field of medical healthcare. I am thrilled to welcome business executive, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and global innovator, Naveen Jain. Welcome to Redefining Medicine. We are here at the 26th Annual World Congress, and I have the distinct honor of having Naveen Jain, who just got off the stage. Thank you so much for joining us today, Naveen.
Thank you. It's a pleasure and an honor.
No, it's an honor for me. So I just heard a little bit of your keynote, and I have to say I'm totally obsessed with you. So I hope you have a few hours to spare because I'm not letting you out of this room. So you are an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. You are a global innovator. You are changing the world and hoping to change healthcare as we know it today. You are a philanthropist. There is so much about you that is incredibly inspiring and moving. So let's go back, though, to your humble beginnings. And if you can share with us a bit of where it all started and how.
So I grew up in India. We were very, very poor. We didn't have food to eat, and we didn't have a place to stay. We moved from village to village because my father refused to take bribes, and that means being honest really meant that his bosses wasn't going to get any bribe, and his boss's boss wasn't going to get any bribe, and that means since he cannot be fired in a government, they kept moving him from village to village. And we were in very remote areas where there were no schools, there were no colleges, and you would sit on the floor and write on the floor. And despite all that, and you would think those are the tough situations, it turns out those were actually the best way to learn. Learning, we look at the things in this country, and it puzzles me when people say, well, people who are somehow poor get poor education. I'm sorry.
They're disadvantaged.
They're not disadvantaged. They're disadvantaged because they don't have the fabric of the family. When people want great education, they get great education. I don't really care where you come from. It comes from the love of the mother, the love of the parents, and the desire for you to learn. And when you have that, you could be anywhere in the world. You will learn. So learning is not something that happens at a school. Learning that happens in life. The people you meet, the things you do, and constantly being intellectually curious. And we're going to get down to it because to me, that is what life is. The day you stop learning is the day you have died. And you really, at that point, are a zombie. Intellectual curiosity is what moves the humans forward and what moves the humanity forward. And to me, the best thing we can do for our children is not to take them to the water or make them drink. Our job is to make them thirsty. And that intellectual curiosity is the thirst.
So they seek it out.
They seek it out every time on their own, and they actually go out and act on it.
So you came here from humble beginnings with a few dollars in your pocket, with advanced degree. And your siblings as well went on to get advanced degrees. And you made a name for yourself, and you worked your butt off. And so tell me exactly that feeling, if you can just reflect back, and then we will move forward. But if you can reflect back to that innate determination, that feeling that you had to know that you needed to make something of yourself.
Well, it's interesting. When you come from hunger, you have that desire to go prove everyone wrong. And it is really great. But to me, the most satisfying thing is not what I was able to do with my life, is to watch our children do amazing things with their life. Coming from humble background, it's obvious that you can go out because you have this innate desire to be successful. Our children grew up in any which way you look at it, very affluent family. But now you look at what they have done. Our oldest graduated from Wharton. And now he started a company, he sold the company, and he's focused on solving the real world problems. And that is the thing, is that he is not the person who's saying, let's build another gadget, let's go out and use the technology. He's saying, what are the biggest problems? Affordable housing, child care, senior care, the student loans. How do we solve the problem for the real people using technology? Our daughter gives him run for his money. He's very good. I mean, just this month alone, he is featured in GQ, he's Wired magazine, New Yorker magazines. I mean, he's everywhere. He just got selected by the Bloomberg 50, the top 50 people. But my point is, he's the one to watch in that list, right? But the thing is, our daughter graduated from Stanford. She's a Stanford STEM fellow, Stanford Mayfield fellow. She is the one who wanted to help women live better lives. What does she do when she graduates? She works in the AI company. Her job is to use artificial intelligence to remove all gender bias from hiring, so more women can be hired. Our youngest one is a senior at Stanford, and he just got selected as a Schwarzman Scholar, the only 145 people in the world that get selected. Now, that to me is really the key. So how does that happen? And that is just, I want to spend a couple of minutes about how do you do that? When you define success as the money in the bank, guess what happens? Everything in your life, you chase that. When our kids were young, we told them your success will never be measured by how much money you have in the bank. It will be measured by how many people's life you have been able to improve. And if that's how you measure your success, go out and be successful. It is not about what you own, it's about what you create. Your self-esteem doesn't come from what you own, it comes from what you have created. And if you own a lot and you haven't created anything, you're still a parasite on humanity. And just remember that. And I told them the true sign of success is humility. The day you become humble is the day you become successful. If you still have iota of arrogance left in you, then you're still trying to prove something to yourself or someone else. And that is the kind of things once you can start to let your children know of what success is, and that they go out to do amazing things in life.
So I'm making the assumption that your parents utilized that same value system with you and your siblings as well for you to become as successful as you are today.
It's very interesting. I did not know, obviously, when I was a child, that my mother was illiterate. She would, wake me up in the morning, and she couldn't read, and she would point out and say, tell me the answer to this problem, math problem. And I would do the things and say, Mom, the answer is 7. And she would look at me and say, don't make me look. Do it again. And I would do it again and say, Ma'am, I think the answer is still 7. Good, now go to the next one.
Brilliant woman.
Right. Point was, she cared. She realized the only way to break out of the cycle of poverty is to get the education. And she knew that's how we are going to get out of the poverty.
So in your talk this morning, you made the statement, do something that is so meaningful that you stop caring about what others think of you and fall in love with yourself. Can you expound on that?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I find, in especially women. They're constantly looking for approval. And I find that the best way to love someone is to love yourself. Best way to love your work is to fall in love with yourself. And what I mean by not being self-conceited, what I mean by stop looking for approval from someone else. Be comfortable in your own skin. And once you get there, and once you find happiness inside you, it doesn't matter where you go, you carry that happiness to the world. When you are unhappy with yourself, it doesn't matter, you could be in paradise and you're still unhappy, right? So the happiness is something you don't find somewhere else. Happiness is you find inside you. What happens to all of us is we think something else makes us happy. Money makes us happy. Power makes us happy. My spouse makes me happy. But imagine what happens. The spouse who makes you happy, you just given the remote control of your happiness to that person. Happy, unhappy, happy, unhappy. That means they can make you happy, that means they can make you unhappy. Wouldn't that be amazing to find the happiness right inside you and share that happiness with her, him, and everyone else?
So let's take that concept and segue a little bit over and transition to put that in application and that theory into play where a physician is concerned. So most of the physicians here at A4M have stepped outside the box. They didn't care what people thought. They took the initiative. They took that giant leap to the other side, so to speak, to, with their altruistic, desires to help people, but really wanting to get to root cause.
Yes.
And they didn't care what people thought, but yet they might have faced criticism and they might have had backlash from colleagues, et cetera. So when you take that principle and you apply it to physicians and those that are, teetering with the idea of doing it, but are too scared because they are afraid what their patients will do. Will they follow me? Will I be able to put food on my table? So how can you help to inspire the practitioners that really innately, they love themselves so much that they want to do this. They love practicing medicine. How can you inspire them to love themselves just a little bit more to know that everything will be okay?
No one can inspire anyone. You inspire yourself. Right. The day you start to believe I can do it, you can do it. If you believe it is difficult, then it is difficult. When you believe it is impossible, it becomes impossible for you and not someone else. So it has to be you who says, I am going to go out and do something different. And the fact you know nothing about it is what makes you the most dangerous person in the history of medicine. If you want to redefine medicine, you can't be the expert in the medicine because you have taken everything that people do as granted. The best you can do is to make an incremental improvement. And you look at our healthcare. This is the one area, it doesn't require a rocket scientist to actually make it better because it is so bad. This is the only industry that I know of where you make money when your customer is unhappy. I mean, think about it for a second. A doctor makes money when your customer is sick, and they make no money when the customer is not sick and happy. Hospital, the pharma companies, the whole system is reliant on your customer being unhappy. How can you possibly think that you cannot make an improvement on that? An interesting thing is the idea of you have to know a lot because you somehow able to want to diagnose the root cause. Interesting thing is the technology is moving so fast. The humans can't keep up with that. The number of scientific papers that are published every day, the human mind cannot digest them in 24 hours, period. And the only way we'll be able to keep the medicine moving forward is to cut down the time from the time when there is research to the time when the customer sees it. It's 20 to 25 years. So if you have a son or a daughter who is sick, he's 10, think about that by the time they get the treatment, they'll be 35, right? The thing, if you are a doctor, is to now be more than a doctor. You start to become a human being. The part of what made a great doctor used to be caring for the patient, listening to the patient, about having empathy with the patient, and to be able to understand what is going on inside them. It's not just simply looking at the symptom and prescribing a drug for it. There is a pill for every ill. There is a drug for every symptom, without understanding what are the impact of taking that drug. Most of these drugs simply suppress the symptoms. They don't cure anything.
And create new ones.
Create new ones, right? So interesting thing is none of them cure anything. Think about the chronic diseases, autoimmune diseases. The drug suppresses the immune system. You got pain, they're not going to cure the pain. They just make you feel that you don't feel the pain. Right? Every one of these things are simply suppression of symptom. And when you suppress one symptom, it pops up in 3 other places. And when you suppress them, it pops up in 9 more places. But our body is connected. When it's inflamed, inflammation is the root cause of chronic diseases. What people don't realize, what is inflammation? You are inflamed. The fire is burning. Instead of suppressing the fire, they simply put the patch where the thing's burning. It goes here. here, and here.
Right, they're rekindling it.
Rekindling it all the places, and it's constantly. And by the time they get to our age, we're taking more pills than blueberries, and there is something wrong with that approach. And to me, if you are listening to this, you are on the right path. You're taking a different path. And it doesn't matter where you end up, it is going to be better for your patient. And if it is better for your patient, in turn, it's going to be better for you. If you can help billion people, if you can help 1,000 people, it is going to create a great business for you. It is when you don't help your customer, then you need to worry about putting the food on the table. So always remember, if all you have to do is to do good in the world, and you will do well for yourself. Doing good and doing well are not mutually exclusive. It is what happens today is when we start to say, what if we only did well, we don't worry about the patient, is what happens today.
So over the last several years, you've achieved extraordinary successes in your various business opportunities. What inspired you to get involved in healthcare?
It is again, I start to think about what are the biggest problems that are facing humanity. What if I'm going to dedicate 5-10 years of my life? God forbid, if I'm actually successful in doing what I'm doing, would it impact the life of 1 billion people? Would it change the way people live their life? And as I've always believed solving a bigger problem is so much easier than solving a small problem. And that to me was a big enough problem that if we can do it and we can get it right, we can help 1 billion people live better life. What's interesting is, for the first time in human history, we now have technologies that are so easy to access. It doesn't matter whether you are in India, China, or Bangladesh. You have access to the latest technology. You have access to the brilliant mind around the world, because geographical boundaries are no longer contain what you can do. A small group of people can do the things that require the Fortune 500 companies, that require the countries to be mobilized. We believed whether it is going to the space exploration can only be done not by the countries, only by the superpowers. And you look today, every space exploration company is done by entrepreneurs and innovating the things that government never did. Government did not build reusable rockets. Government did not bring the cost of going to space really, really cheap. The first time when we landed on the moon as a government mission, it cost us $25 billion. In today's dollars, it's about $100 billion. Our cost of going to the moon on a marginal basis is going to be under $10 million.
My goodness.
Right? And that's the kind of leaps and bounds. And you know what? We are only 30 people. It did not mobilize the whole country of 10 million people, and the whole country had to be mobilized to do that. And that's the power. We look at the energy. We have been talking about getting rid of fossil fuel and start to use renewable energy. We signed the Kyoto Treaty, we signed the Paris Treaty, and nothing happens. It took one entrepreneur like Elon to say, enough is enough. I'm going to go out and build an electric car. No one told him, in the last 60 years, there has been no new automotive company that has ever been created. Forget about having an electric car company. And today we sit here, Tesla is worth more than GM and Ford.
And GM's closing plants.
And GM is closing plant, and Tesla is buying their plants. It takes one entrepreneur to change the way people live their life. And it can be anyone. So it's not about, you were talking about, being inspired or being passionate.
It's being obsessed.
It's being obsessed. Passion is for losers. Obsession is for winners.
Okay, so let's discuss your obsession with healthcare and changing the paradigm. What technologies out there, and then we'll get into discussing yours, are you most excited about?
So first of all, now the sensors are able to diagnose things. That means we will be able to understand everything that's happening inside the human body. Today we do it such a crude way, and people are going to someday laugh at us. We used to prick our body to draw the blood out and break the veins to get the blood out. People are going to say, how primitive that was, right? I mean, someday then none of that stuff will be. We will have everything we do will be full of sensors. Remember, we'll wake up, and the minute we put the foot on the tile, our tiles will be nothing but sensors. It will know the time we woke up. It will, it will analyze our perspiration. It will be analyzing our weight. We go to the toilet. It'll be analyzing our urine. It will be analyzing our poop. It'll be analyzing everything that's happening. You go in front of the mirror, it's analyzing the whole body, and it will alert you when it sees something, say, you need to be changing the following things. Notice the following things, start changing the diet, right? Everything inside our body, we're going to have these sensors that are going to be floating around. They're going to be constantly monitoring and repairing the body even before you see the symptom.
In our lifetime?
In our lifetime. Next 10 years are going to fundamentally change the way the humans live. A trajectory of how humanity is going to live is going to fundamentally change in the next 10 years.
And how are you playing a part in that?
My current thing that I'm focused on is making illness optional. And the goal is, because if you think about it, we are not born with diseases. Diseases, especially the chronic diseases, is not something you catch. So it's not something you say, honey, I was out with the boys last night. I think I might have caught obesity, right? Or I caught diabetes last night. These things happen over a long period of time. And somehow, in the last 20 years, when we started the gene sequencing, we somehow believed genes are our destiny. And that, to me, is fundamentally so flawed. You're born with the same genes that you die with. There is nothing changes in your genes. How can they possibly be responsible for causing any diseases? Gene expression, however, is a very different thing. That means your genes don't change, but your gene expression does. But guess what? You cannot change your genes, but you can change your gene expression. Your genes expression changes by everything that we do. The food we eat, the air we breathe, the people we meet, everything we do changes our gene expression. Now, when we talk about we as humans, most people forget that we are a walking, talking ecosystem in ourselves. We are a complete universe in ourselves. There are 40 trillion stars up in the space, and there are 40 trillion organisms inside each one of us. Now, the numbers are so large, people can't even fathom what these numbers are, right? There are 7 billion people on the planet Earth. Imagine if there were 5,000 or 6,000 Earth, and all the humans combined on all those Earth live inside each one of us. My point is, our human DNA produces 20,000 genes, and these 40 trillion organisms produce somewhere between 2 million to 20 million genes. That means at best, we are 1% human. Now, I was going to tell you something that I didn't talk about on stage. When we are born, going through the birth canal is the first time when the baby starts to get exposure to this microbiome, right? So mother's microbiome is really the one that starts to seed the microbiome, and then it changes, obviously, over time. Here's the most interesting part. The first 7 days of mother's breast milk contains colostrum, and colostrum cannot be digested by human body. It has oligosaccharides that can only be digested by the microbiome. So what is nature telling us? That it just created an offspring, and the only way to keep this offspring healthy is not to feed it, but to feed them. Because when you have a healthy microorganism, it trains the immune system that keeps the baby healthy. Because when the baby is born, the immune system is very weak, and 70% of our immune system is along our gut lining, right? So interesting thing is, somehow we, in our current healthcare system, the Western medicine, we have waged the war against the bacteria and viruses without realizing, without them, we are dead. 40 trillion of them, their whole purpose is to keep us healthy. Now, most people somehow believe that it is, we control everything that happens to the human body. And I have this alternate theory that it's not that our gut is our secondary brain. What if our gut was our primary brain and actually the epicenter of who we are? Even before the brain developed as in mammals, they had gut. The gut not only has neurons, these 40 trillion organisms actually control who we are. And I want to share with you this, a tongue-in-cheek story that I came up with to explain the concept of this microbiome. And the idea is, imagine how humans were created. So, we all wonder, every religion has this creation story. So let's talk about the medical world, redefining medicine. What would be that creation story? In our world, you say, this planet that we live on is about 4.5 billion years old. About 3.5 billion years ago, you start to see the organisms start to come up, the amoebas and the bacteria and viruses. And humans are only, give or take, a couple of million years old. How did humans come to be? So imagine if this was how it happened. One day, all the organisms got together. And they say, we're sick and tired of living in this small space. We want to take over the world. And they all looked at each other. One of the smarter ones said, I have an idea. What is your idea? What if we can create something bipedal? Trillions of us could live inside it. All we have to do is keep this thing healthy. We can make it crave any food we want. It's going to go everywhere, find the food that we crave. It's going to go all over the world. It's going to poop everywhere. It's going to spread us around, and we're going to take over the world. And they call that creation humans. And they were really proud of having created humans, except that right after they created, they started to worry. Just like today, we worry about artificial intelligence. And we wonder if someday artificial intelligence became smarter than us, what's going to happen to us humans? Organisms were no dumb. They got together again and say, oh my God, we have just created a monster. So they say, Master, we have a real problem. We created humans. Aren't you worried someday humans might get smarter than us? What's going to happen to us? Master says, don't worry. When we created them, we put all the controls in place. Tell us more, Master. Let me tell you, inside their human cells, they have this thing they call mitochondria. They keep forgetting that's our ancient brother inside their cell. That's the one that supplies all the energy to their cell. Guess what? We brothers talk to each other. We sit in the gut, we talk into mitochondria all the time. We telling when anytime they don't take good care of our humans, we tell the mitochondria to shut their energy and they're done. Master, that's brilliant. But you're forgetting the brain. They're starting to develop this thing called brain. What are we going to do about that? Master says, that's the first thing we thought about it. How so, Master? Remember, we live in the gut. We put a direct connection right from the gut to their brain. And can you believe what they call that? They call that a vagus nerve. They're thinking they're going to name it after Las Vegas, thinking what happens in the gut is going to stay in the gut. No, 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 no. What happens in the gut goes everywhere. We control their amygdala. That means we control their mood. We control their behavior. We control their decision making. In fact, what makes them feel good, the serotonin thing, we don't let them produce much of that. 90% of that, we produce it ourselves. In fact, we pull all the strings, but like a good leader, we make them think they are the one who are making the decisions. So we sit here, we pull the strings, let them think they are in control. So ladies and gentlemen, enjoy being the master of the universe. We have taken over the world.
Well, I'm glad I didn't grow up with that story about how humans were created. That's a little frightening.
But the interesting thing is, scientifically, now we are learning the same thing. 6 months ago, there was a paper published in Nature that says how our gut microbiome uses the microRNA interference to control our amygdala, our mood and behavior for their own benefit. There was a paper published that as we age, our microbiome, when it changes, communicates with mitochondria, and mitochondria gene expression changes, causing the aging symptom. And they were able to replace the mitochondria and remove the lot of the signs of aging. What we're going to learn, you're asking me what is the technology I'm excited about? It is going to be individuals being empowered to understand what is going on inside the body, but more importantly, have actionable things they can do to take control of it. That means we will know at a molecular level what is going on, and we'll be able to know exactly the diet and the nutrition we need. We're going to go back to the times where we knew the food is the medicine. We're going to start to understand all the diseases begin in the gut, and there is no one diet that works for everyone. In fact, each one of us, the diet that works for me today will not work for you. Our gut microbiome is less than 5% same. Our genes are 99% the same, right? And that means if you eat spinach, it may work for you and it may not work for me. And even the diet that works for you today won't work for you 3 months or 4 months from now. And the reason for that is because the people, when you change your diet, your microbiome changes.
And when you change your environment.
You change your environment, your microbiome changes. In fact, the people, when they live in a certain environment and they eat, and they're exposed to certain toxins, our gut microbiome changes to detoxify them, right? Even the people who eat food with MSG, our microbiome changes to detoxify MSG. When we take the drugs, microbiome detoxifies and synthesizes and metabolizes these drugs. So drug effectiveness, vaccine effectiveness, and the food that's good for us is determined by what's inside our gut. There has never been a technology that could analyze what is going on inside the gut. People were looking at the wrong things. So people who do the microbiome testing, they simply test what organisms are there. And that is really where the problem arises. It may be the same organisms, it changes its behavior based on what else is out there, but more importantly, what food you're eating. It changes what it synthesizes, it changes what it metabolizes based on what you eat. When there are other organisms, they all change their behavior. When there is more of one organism, it changes its behavior. It is the ecosystem that changes, and the ecosystem determines. It is not what organisms exist, but what is important is what they are actually doing. What are the enzymes and peptides they're producing, because that's what our body absorbs. And understanding what food we eat, what chemicals are there, and how they're going to be metabolized and synthesized, and what nutrition is going to be produced, or what toxins is going to be produced when you eat those foods. And that technology is now available. That was never there before.
Now, is this technology Viome that you're speaking of?
So this actually is a technology that came out of Los Alamos National Lab. They spent billions of dollars developing it for biodefense work. What they were trying to find out was, if a bad actor were to get hold of something bad, how would we know what is making us sick? So they came up with this technology to analyze every organism's what is being produced by them that makes us sick. And when I saw that technology, I'm thinking, if we know what's making people sick, why can't we keep them healthy? So I licensed the technology, put an amazing team together, the head of IBM Watson to do AI for us. The gentleman who developed this technology at Los Alamos Lab, 15 years at a federal job, he quit his job to come work for us to help solve the problem of making illness optional. Now, to do a complete RNA sequencing, not just DNA sequencing.
So you're the only one doing DNA and RNA.
So we are the only company that can do the RNA sequencing, period. Nobody else can do that. That technology would have cost thousands of dollars. We are able to do it for a couple of $100. Our goal here is not to make money. Our goal is to really give back. And as you know, growing up poor, I have achieved everything I wanted. God has been very kind to us. And the people who helped me don't need my help. And the only way I can pay my debt back to the society is to pay forward. So our whole goal in life is to get millions of people to do the test. Because once we understand all the data with all the different diseases and understand all the different biochemical activities that are happening inside your gut, we can use the artificial intelligence to be able to reverse it. So our goal is, if we can get every one of us to come together as humanity, our generation will be the generation that once for all will be able to solve the chronic diseases. And if we don't, we're going to watch our children and grandchildren suffer. All it takes is a couple of million of us to come together to do that. The pharmaceutical companies are counting on us never coming together. When we have these individual doctors, they have the data only for their 1,000 people. There's never been a time where we could collect all this from millions of people. The pharmaceutical companies have become parasite on humanity. And I believe that humanity will come together to kill these parasites. One day, you and I and billions of us will live disease-free life, and there will be no pharmaceutical companies. It will be the food we eat will be the medicine. That means everything will be personalized just for you. And it will be personalized every 3 or 4 months. As your gut microbiome is changing, it will personalize the diet for you. And you know, when I realized that, I was feeling really good. But history makes you humble. And I realized 2,500 years ago, Hippocrates said that all diseases begin in the gut. One man's food is another man's poison. That means the food that's good for you is not for someone else. And then he said, let food be thy medicine, let thy medicine be the food. It took us 2,500 years, billions of dollars spent developing technology to understand what we knew 2,500 years ago. And if you go back even further, Ayurveda, 5,000 years ago, said every person has a different need for different food.
Well, then how come the physician community and the medical schools actually don't practice what Hippocrates and Ayurveda had put out there? First, do no harm is a perfect example.
Yeah, that is actually the motto is only do harm.
Right.
Right? So imagine, when you go to the medical school, are you taught about nutrition? Are
Never.
you taught about gut microbiome? No. You're taught about listen to the symptom, there is a drug for that. Our health has become an iPhone. There is an app for everything, right? And that's literally what we are taught when we become an MD. Just prescribe the medicine. And 99% of the doctors don't even realize the thing that they're prescribing considered evidence-based medicine. The evidence is so poor if you ever read it. Most drugs that are FDA approved, evidence-based, has an efficacy rate of 20% to 25%. And what that means is 75% to 80% of the people will only be harmed. And the 20 to 25% that might benefit will also be harmed. So when you go and take a Hippocratic oath,
100% of the people are being harmed.
100% of the people
Right.
are being harmed. So when, you know, it's called Hippocratic oath, it came from Hippocrates. Is the oath you're taking do no harm, and only thing you're doing is to harm people, right? What kind of life? A pharmaceutical company CEO on an earning call once said, the best drug that we develop are the drugs that people have to take for the rest of their life. Imagine what he's saying. The best drugs are the ones that don't cure a single disease. Now, I don't know why it doesn't make people mad. That person, I don't know how they look up in the mirror every day in the morning and don't pull a trigger on their head and kill themselves thinking, what kind of monster have they become? Goldman Sachs wrote a report 6 months ago, which is mind-boggling. They say we are starting to worry about pharmaceutical companies' earnings because technologies like CRISPR, it will allow us to edit the genes personally. We will be able to personalize the nutrition for people, and the prescription business that pharmaceutical companies have may go away, and we are worried about their earnings. As opposed to saying, we salute the research, we salute the entrepreneurs who are going out and making humanity get better. They're worried about the pharmaceutical companies' earnings.
Let me just ask you to that point. So venture capitalists, what is their motivation and how do you get them to actually buy in to this
Unbelievable.
paradigm
It's
shift?
the easiest thing to do because we all know If we can help 1 billion people live better life, there's hundreds of billions of dollars that can be generated. Doing good and doing well are not mutually exclusive. In fact, in the long term, only way to do well is to do good. And only way to do good is to do well. Because if you want to do a small good in the world, start a non-profit. If you want to do large good in the world, you create a for-profit company, because profit allows you to scale. Even if you are the richest man in the world, and if you're making no money, it's only a matter of time you run out of money. And if you can help 1,000 people and make a little bit of money, you can help 10,000 people. Who can help 1 million people.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
To a VC firm or a bank, they look at the short term. They're not looking at the long term.
Actually,
they're not looking at all these people that okay, well, in 20 years they'll still be alive, so they'll be spending money.
No, it's better. Actually, no, I'm talking about right now.
Right.
So think about it. Today, people who have autoimmune diseases, the drugs that people take for autoimmune diseases like Humira and others, is $200 billion market. If the companies like us who can personalize the nutrition, if we can solve just that problem, that's a $200 billion revenue. Now forget about solving obesity and diabetes and depression and anxiety and cancer and effectiveness of all these cancer drugs. That's a massive market. They are willing to fund it because when we succeed, it will be the largest non-pharmaceutical company ever been created. So money is in fact never the issue when you're going out and solving these major problems, because imagine, they can create a $500 billion company for their investment, return on investment. So return on investment is so high because problems are so bad, right? The best way to find the best opportunity for an entrepreneur is to find the biggest problems. Biggest problems are the best opportunity for an entrepreneur.
So let's discuss your technology.
Yeah.
So take us through it. Yeah. So I send away for the kit. Yeah. Then what? I poop in a cup? What happens?
I hope not. I mean, so interestingly, again, the way it works is we are able to analyze every single biochemical activities by doing the RNA sequences. The way it works is you get this kit called Viome. So you go to viome.com. And again, you want to love, Indians cannot pronounce the word V, right? So when I say Viome, it's really
Viome. Okay.
So it's V as in Victor, I-O-M-E. You get the kit at home. It's a beautiful looking kit. And it essentially has a toilet seat cover. And it's tiny. You touch the poop, you put in the test tube, there's a prepaid envelope, and you send it. 2 weeks later, you get your results. And it shows you clearly what is going on inside your gut. But most importantly, here are the foods to avoid.
And this is direct to consumer.
Direct to consumer. Okay. And here are the foods you need to eat. And by the way, why? Not just tell you don't eat this. We tell you why. So for me, in the app, after you send your stool sample, 2 weeks later, you get the information on your app. So for me, as show you, so this is a app that, in fact, you look at right here, my foods to avoid. It says apple. Why apple? You click on that, says, Mr. Jain, you have apple chlorhexidine leaf virus. And if you eat apple, you'll be feeding that virus that will make you sick. That's okay, but why not banana? It says banana contains chitins, and we notice that chitins is not being digested by your gut microbiome, causing you inflammation. So stop eating that banana. And look at the things, tomato, cucumber, all the things that I thought were healthy.
Right.
And tells you why. Here are the foods that are good for me, and you can click any one. It tells you why, and here's the research.
Where's the chocolate?
Right. So interestingly, chocolate is good for a lot of people. And it's bad for a lot of people. Spinach is good for about half the people and bad for half the people.
So it's picking up allergies, it's picking up...
It's looking for inflammation. It's looking for the things that can reduce the inflammation. That means increasing the anti-inflammatory things and decreasing the pro-inflammatory thing. Finding the way what's, gut sealing. So healing the gut so the gut is not healing. Because think about it. There was a paper that came out 2 weeks ago. The food sensitivities are caused by imbalance of microbiome and the leaky gut. So food sensitivities are simply the way for us to detect that you have a leaky gut. I mean, imagine, how do you get the food sensitivity? Think about it for a second. Food should never be in your blood. How can you get antibodies to the food when food should never be in the blood? The only time it ends up in the blood is when your epithelial barrier is not strong and the food leaks over to the blood, and the blood makes the immune system makes the antibodies to it. So until the immune system is compromised and until the epithelial barrier is compromised, you don't get food sensitivity. And once you seal that thing and you heal that thing, the food sensitivities go away. Right? So don't do the food sensitivity test. That's a symptom of the problem. The root cause is in the gut. So coming back to answer your question, it is really, really simple. You order the things, you get at home, no doctor is needed, but your doctor can prescribe. The doctors are not being cut out here. Interesting thing is, every time you get this stuff, you still need a coach and the nutritionist and the health coach and a doctor to be able to guide you through the process, to be able to create the right recipes, to be able to create the right nutrition. And so that means your role as a doctor will continually change as the technology changes. You no longer will be judged by how well you can diagnose diseases. You will be judged by how good human you are. That means your humanity, your empathy, your ability to listen and to be able to understand what the person is feeling and to be able to work with them, to motivate them to be able to follow this step.
To stay well, not to
rather
not
than
to fix or not to mask a problem.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, so for those that have autoimmune issues that are neurologically affected, like MS and fibromyalgia and whatnot, so have you been able to take those kind of patients, put them through the test, give them their profile, and have they seen marked improvement?
So I want to make it very clear, neither we are not an FDA approved test. That means neither we diagnose diseases, nor do we make a claim to cure any diseases. However, having said that, in the last few months, we had 25,000 plus people who took the test. And their stories are mind-boggling to me. If you just go to Viome.com and click on stories, you will see these people telling us they had acne for 8 to 10 years and the acne disappeared. Their eczema is gone. And this woman says she had a childhood rheumatoid arthritis and has been on biologics. And he says now on thyroids, there are people are now saying the drug they're taking is instead of once every 3 weeks, once every 3 months or 6 months or a year.
Remarkable.
It's just remarkable improvement. We're telling people, one woman lost 115 pounds. She was 2 weeks away from getting a gastric bypass surgery. She thought she was going to die. People who are telling us that all of the IBS symptoms that were digestive system, bloating, IBS, IBD. Michelle V, who is a golfer, one of the customers, she talked about it, so I can tell you that she had this digestive issues. She could not play golf. After she took Viome test, not only she got better, she won the Singapore tournament. And she wrote that, she shot a selfie video and sent it to us and saying, thank you. Right? So amazing thousands of people whose lives have changed. And to me, never being a doctor or a scientist, I never thought in my life that every day when I open my email, there is not at least a day that goes by, there are at least 100 people telling me, you changed my life. And to me, there is no better satisfaction. There is no amount of money that can give you that much pleasure. We don't make any money. Test used to cost thousands of dollars. We reduced the cost down to a couple of $100s. And when we started, we were selling it for $1,000. Now it is for $400. We brought our cost down. We're selling it for $300. And we're going to bring the cost down to $199. And my hope is within a year, we're going to bring it down to $99. And hope is in the next 3 years, it'll be $10 or under. And my hope is that one day we will charge nothing and give it away as a philanthropic effort. Right? We want people to get better. If someday the company shuts down because there is no need for it, I will be the happiest man. I am not going to be crying. I don't need more money. What I need is a way to get billions of people live better life. One of the things I did not share with people is 2 weeks ago, my dad passed away.
I'm sorry.
And I saw him, he died I was right next to him. He had pancreatic cancer. And I saw all the research. It clearly showed the pancreatic cancer happens when you have a bad gut, the bacteria moves from gut to the pancreas, shuts down the immune system, allows the cancer to grow. And I told my dad, I said, Dad, I wish I had started this company 2 years ago because I would have fixed this problem by now. I can't help you, but I'm going to work twice as hard to make sure no one ever suffers from any chronic disease. Forget cancer. I don't want anyone to have Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, obesity, diabetes, depression. I mean, how many good souls are lost because of people killing themselves because of depression? Depression, diabetes, and obesity are the fastest chronic diseases growing. Autoimmune disease is growing so fast. I'm worried about.
And they're getting younger and younger with the diagnosis.
And our daughter, I'm worried, is starting to develop that, and I know that problem can be solved. So if I don't do it for anything else, I'm going to do it for our own children and grandchildren.
Would you say this is your most important moonshot?
I would say, of all the things I have done, this will be the one that we will be able to help billions of people's life. But remember, this is not going to be the last one. I'm absolutely convinced in the next 4 or 5 years we will get there. And when we get there, I want to solve the education problem. I want to solve the agriculture problem, because there is no reason for us to be doing what we do to our food. We're growing our food with all the chemicals, the pesticides and insecticides and glyphosates that are actually there just to kill every organisms in the soil. And when we take that food, what does it do? It kills all the organisms inside our gut. What is the gut of the plant? The soil. What if we can adjust the microbiome of the soil? Not only, there was a very recent paper in the Agriculture magazine, if we can adjust the microbiome of the soil, we can increase the yield by 3 times to 10 times with requiring no pesticides. Because organisms themselves will keep the bad guys away, just like they do it in our gut. They keep the parasites away. They fight them out. And I really believe that will be another big moonshot that I'll be able to solve. So my hope is the problems are not going to go away. That means there will always be an opportunity for an entrepreneur to go out and solve that.
You are relaying such important and valuable information for the future physicians of America, future entrepreneurs, current entrepreneurs. What would be your golden nugget that they can take away?
Dream so big that people think you're crazy. When you tell them what you're going to be doing, if they don't think you're crazy, then you're not thinking big enough. Never be afraid to fail, because you only fail when you give up. Everything else is simply the ups and downs of life. As we discussed it, as an entrepreneur, your life is like a heartbeat. When it's smooth, you're dead. You just don't know it. When you are down, never ever worry. Hunker down. Be close to the people you love, because you know the next beat is going to be up. When you are on top of that beat, never get too cocky. Keep your friends close, because winter will be coming soon.
You share so much of your wisdom in your new book, Moonshots, Creating a World of Abundance. What would say is your most important quote?
I don't know about the quote part.
Or
but
concept.
The concept really is that the biggest advantage you have is being a non-expert. So every time you're afraid that I can't do this because I know nothing about it, is your biggest advantage. I knew nothing about medicine. I didn't even know what DNA and RNA was.
Was it your father's illness that prompted you to?
No, actually it happened before my father's illness. It was the goal of just solving this problem for a billion people. And the interesting thing was, not only obviously I read a lot, and I'll tell you how I read, but the fact was I knew nothing about it is what makes me the most dangerous person the medical industry has ever seen. Same way when I went into space, I had no background in aeronautics. I don't know the rockets from atoms. But guess what? We changed the way people just thought about how to go to the space. By instead of using $10 billion, we could do it for $10 million. Right? And that's the kind of things happens when you're coming from outside the industry. So never be afraid that you know nothing about it.
You made a statement. You said when you become an expert, you become useless.
Yes. And the reason what I mean by that is once you are an expert, you become useless when it comes to disruption. That means the best you can do is to make an incremental improvement. You can do 10% better than the other experts because you're better. But you can never make it 10 times better. You can never make it 100 times better. Because as an expert, you have to have the foundational knowledge. And you can never challenge the foundational knowledge because that's what makes you an expert. Only the non-expert says, why do you have to do it that way? Why does things have to be that way? And when they strike the foundation, that's when you rebuild and you do the 10x and 100x better.
I can't thank you enough for your time.
It's a pleasure.
And I wish we had far more time because I think that the wisdom that you have will change a lot of lives, as will Viome. So we thank you so much. And if you can give one last thought, what would that be?
My last thought will be, find your moonshot. Find something you're willing to die for and live for it. What is it that you're doing that makes you wake up at 4 a.m. and jump out of the bed? So when you wake up and you're not jumping out of the bed with joy, find something else to do. Find something you will be doing when you have everything in life that you want. And if you do that today, you will get everything you want in your life. Never start something to make money. Making money is like having an orgasm. If you focus on it, you're never going to get it. So just enjoy the process.
Again, the book is Moonshots. It's definitely worth the read, and I can't think of it yet.